Hi there. In the first video of our module, we looked at how to increase and decrease the frequency of existing behaviors. And we increase the frequency of existing behaviors through reinforcement. We decrease the frequency of existing behaviors through punishment. Well, what if we have a behavior that we want somebody to learn that is not already in their repertoire? Well, that would involve teaching new behaviors. And there's three basic processes that we use to teach new behaviors according to the radical behaviorist approach. The first one is called shaping, which involves reinforcing successive approximations toward our goal. So as we get closer and closer to a goal, we reinforce. Maybe we have a child that we want to make eye contact and say thank you when somebody gives them something. So we want thank you and eye contact. And maybe we give this child something and they sort of mumble something in our direction. And we say, right, let's say thank you and make sure you look somebody in the eye. And then the next time the child actually says thank you but doesn't make eye contact, we say, good job, you said thank you in a nice clear voice. Now we look them in the eye when you say it next time. And the next time the child says thank you, look someone in the eye. As we're moving them closer and closer to our goal, we reinforce those closer attempts. That's shaping. We also have a process called chaining. And chaining involves connecting together several simple behaviors into a more complex behavior. So we have linking simple behaviors into a complex behavior. Okay? To a complex behavior. Into a complex behavior. Not just to, but into complex behavior. So maybe we're talking about if you're learning a dance, as you connect several dance steps together, that would be chaining. Maybe you could do one step, now we have to learn a second one, and so we put those together. Maybe a cheer, if you're a cheerleader, you might link some steps together for cheering. Maybe we're talking about writing a paper, and we teach students how to write sentences. And then after they learn how to write sentences, we teach them how to write paragraphs. All right, sentences and then paragraphs. And then we teach them about writing a thesis statement. And then we have them put all of these things together into one large paper. That would be chaining. Okay? The third process for teaching new behaviors, is fading. Just went blank. And fading occurs when we teach a behavior with a lot of prompts and we gradually remove our prompts. Gradually remove prompts for a new behavior. So again, maybe we're talking about somebody saying thank you. And initially we say, remember, what do you say when someone gives you something? We say thank you, we look them in the eye. And then eventually we may just say, look them in the eye. And eventually we may have to say, give them another cue such as, what's the magic word? And eventually people just learn to say thank you and look someone in the eye without any sort of a prompt. And so what we've done is we've gradually removed the prompts that led to this new behavior. So once we have taught new behaviors and we've reinforced or increased the rates of the behaviors that we want to keep, what are some ways that we maintain the frequency of behavior? When we start talking about maintaining behaviors, we start getting into reinforcement schedules. We have to talk about the idea that we reinforce on particular schedules in order to maintain our behavior. Okay? So let's look at that. There's 4 basic reinforcement schedules, and the schedule reinforcement can be offered on a ratio schedule or an interval schedule. And the ratio and the interval can be either fixed or variable. So when we cross these two things, we get 4 different types of schedules. We get a fixed ratio and a fixed interval. And we get a variable ratio and a variable interval. It gives us 4 different types of reinforcement schedules. Well, different schedules lead to different rates of responding and different response behaviors. So the first one we want to look at is a fixed ratio schedule. And I am not a very good artist. If y'all have not figured that out yet, I'm so sorry. All right, this is going to be our fixed ratio schedule. And over here is cumulative rate of response. Oh, excuse me. Let's try this again. Cumulative frequency of response, cumulative frequency of response, and this is time. And a fixed ratio schedule looks sort of like this. We have this little increase, and then we have sort of a plateau, and then an increase and a plateau, and an increase and a plateau, and an increase and a plateau. And what happens is reinforcement is offered at each one of these little points. Okay, this is in your text. With a fixed ratio schedule, we are offering reinforcement every so many attempts. So you get one reinforcer every time you've done 5 things right, or you get one reinforcer every time you've done 3 things right. And what happens is that our organism, whether it's a child or a pet or whatever, will have a rapid rate of responding. They'll respond, get the reinforcer, and then they might slow down for a little bit, rest a little bit. Then they do their response, get the reinforcer, rest a little bit. But over time, we do see an increase in the frequency of responses. When I was a speech therapist, one of the things I used to do was give kids rewards when they got 5 good sounds. Every time they got 5 good sounds, I'd give them a little smiley face. And after so many smiley faces, they could trade it for a piece of candy. Okay? Let's look at our next schedule of reinforcement, which is a variable ratio schedule. Okay? Variable ratio. We still have time here. We still have cumulative frequency of response here. Cumulative frequency. And a variable ratio schedule gives us our strongest and most steady response rate. Okay? What we have is we have reinforcement, and then we have some amount of trials, we don't know how many, and then reinforcement, then more trials and reinforcement, then trials and then reinforcement, trials, reinforcement, and we don't really know when reinforcement is going to occur. So if you don't know when reinforcement is going to occur, you have a very steady rate of responding, trying to make that reinforcement happen, because you don't know how many times you have to do something to get the reinforcer. So it might be that on average we reinforce 1 to every approximately 5 responses, or 1 to approximately 3 responses. But what we really might do is reinforce after 4, and then after 5, and then after 3, and then after 6, and then after 7, something that averages out to 5. And what we see is that because you never know how many responses you have to elicit, or you have to produce rather, in order to get reinforced, we're going to respond frequently in order to get our reinforcer. And a very good example of this is a slot machine. Whoops. Slot machine. Have you ever played the slot machines? You just keep feeding quarters in it, waiting for the big payoff. And you don't want to quit because you never know when that payout's going to be. And you don't want to be the one that missed it. Okay? Let's look at our fixed interval schedule. All right, fixed interval schedule. With a fixed interval schedule, we have a little bit of a rest, then an increase in responding, and maybe a rest, then an increase and a rest, and an increase and a rest, and an increase. And this is our reinforcement occurs up here at these little peaks. All right, and a fixed interval schedule means that we reinforce after some fixed amount of time. So maybe we offer a reinforcer every 5 minutes, every 5 minutes, every 3 minutes, okay? And here's what happens. You get your reinforcer. This should really be right here, so ignore this one. Let's look at this one. This is a better example because I drew it better. You get your reinforcer, and then you rest. Now some time goes by, you've rested for 2 minutes, and you know you better be on task to get the next reinforcer. So you work, you get your reinforcer, and then you rest. Then you work, you get your reinforcer, then you rest. Okay? So if we were doing something like time on task and you're using a fixed interval schedule, what you're going to find is that kids are off task for a little while, resting because they know they have to be on task close to time to get that reinforcer. Finally, we have a variable interval schedule. And the variable interval schedule leads to a rate of responding sort of like the variable ratio, except it's not quite as strong. This straight line isn't quite as steep. You see up here, we have more responses over time. Here we have a good number of responses over time, and we're steady, but it's not quite as steep. So we reinforce maybe after 2 minutes, and then maybe after another minute, then maybe 3 minutes, and then 2 minutes, and then another 3 minutes, and then 1 minute, 2 minutes. We don't know when reinforcement is going to occur. So we have a pretty steady rate of responding, or a pretty steady on-task behaviors, because we don't really know when reinforcement is going to occur. And if we reinforce, and then we have a very short break and reinforce again, we can get almost no drop in behavior. So this is on average every 3 or 5 minutes. And I'm just using 3 or 5 just because I have to have some number. You can use whatever number you want. Okay? So these are our 4 major reinforcement schedules that we can use to reinforce or increase behavior.